Okay, we are live on YouTube. And we should be good to go. Good to go.
Great. I'm assuming we can handle the roll call because we know we just have. Here.
In this case, Megan can, call the order actually first.
Okay. Did you want to do roll, Megan, or?
Yeah, I can do it. Councilmember Brost. Councilmember Edens. Councilmember Nyan. Here. Councilmember Farmer.
Here.
Councilmember Marshall.
Present.
I don't have her on my roster. Are you trying? Do I call a roll for people who aren't on the?
I was supposed to be here.
Only
I got the
individuals
email.
on the-
Yeah,
the
she
last
was,
meeting.
she was on it in the beginning,
Yeah, she
first
was,
meeting. She's
I don't have her on here.
you were at our last, you took the tour and everything, right?
Yeah,
And she's on
she's
the,
on.
she's
Okay.
on the committee. I've got a total of 6 on the committee.
Okay, well, this list only has.
Well,
one, so we'll-
before we approve the minutes, let's make that as an adjustment.
Yeah, let's.
Okay,
Well, we have in the minutes roll call members and you were in here, so there was.
Yeah, and you actually made motions in the last meeting as well.
Yeah.
You have to go back and undo those. Sorry. It didn't
It was just
happen.
my ghost.
Yeah, there were 6 at the last meeting. Did I get the motion wrong at council? I don't think that would happen.
I don't know.
Okay, well, in that case, I don't think that's an issue.
All right. So we've added Katie to your list, Megan. So
Mhm.
we have 6 members. So we need a motion then for the approval of the minutes. Councilmember Farmer makes the motion, Councilman Nyland seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to approve minutes has passed. Public comment, all we need is a couple members to get to comment, we'd be better off, so. Do we have anybody on?
Chair Marshall, at this time, we do not have anybody attending virtually and no public comment.
Okay. So discussion items. We have nothing for information unless somebody wants to add something to our long list. We'll look at Mr. Lee to see if that needs to be added. Nothing, then we'll go to ready for action.
Chair Marshall. Chair Marshall. So in this case, just wanted to quickly go over the proposal for geotechnical engineering services. So at the last meeting on October 3rd, we had discussed the settlement issues here at City Hall. We had seen some of the cracking that has occurred within the municipal building. We've seen just generally the building has, it seems, at least from talking with other team members, that the cracks and the erosion, the sediment issues seems like it has kind of stopped a little bit, but that being said, you don't really know until you do some pretty exhaustive testing. So that being said, we reached out to a firm called Geotechnology LLC. They come very highly recommended. They kind of specialize in this field. It's not something that necessarily, there's a ton of engineering firms that do this type of work. So in this case, they came out, they actually did a full walkthrough of the building. We showed them the areas of concern. And then they put together they wanted to make sure that we had options available. They understand that the testing is quite expensive, so they kind of gave us an à la carte kind of deal here, where, you know, in this proposal, you can actually, depending on what our focus wants to be, you know, at the end of the day, it'd be perfect to do all of it, because that's gonna give you the most complete picture, but we could theoretically choose just to do crack monitoring, or we could choose to do crack monitoring and slab coring, but that's, you know, we could pick and choose piecemeal what we would like to do. That being said, they did provide us quotes for, I said, you know, give us an à la carte option here, but please do also provide us with everything that you think you need to be able to look into. Is our building settling? Is it done settling? Are the cracks getting bigger? Are they getting smaller? Is it moving whatsoever? They wanted to look into our rain gardens, our retention basins, to make sure those aren't playing a role into it. They also wanted to look the piezometer, sorry. That would be going into the rock to test the water as well. And then the slab coring would be looking into the concrete. So a lot of these things, it's gonna cost if we went with option 2, which is actually going into the rock, which is going versus just doing it off the rock surface for the piezometer. That's gonna give you a better idea of what, whether we have a problem or if we don't at all. But that would cost a total of $27,712 to do everything. Broken out, crack monitoring would cost $6,619. Slab coring, a little bit I'll just round around here. 5,500. The rain garden exploration, which I think is critical, is 4,921. And then doing the piezometer on the surface of the rock would be $6,729. And then if we wanted to go into the rock to get a little bit more of a detail, that would give you what you would get from the surface of it as well. You're gonna get better data. That would be a total of 10,665. So they did recommend us moving forward if we wanted to pretty much check the settlement issues and the dirt around the building. Is it causing this problem? They said if we did all these, we would have a better understanding and we would be able to make some pretty good decisions with that data. That being said, this would be considered a professional services offering. So tonight, the department is looking for pretty much guidance from the committee. We could either decide to move forward, make a recommendation to move forward with geotechnology to do some or all of these items. Or we could, at the committee's request, go out for an RFP outlining these same things. So either way, tonight what we're looking for is whether or not we would like to move forward with Geotechnology LLC, or if we would like to do an RFP. That's step one here. And then step two would be, do we want to do all, some, or none? And if whatever we decide tonight, as long as if it's moving forward with Geotechnology LLC, it'll be, legislation will be drafted for the next city council meeting for final approval on a consultant agreement. So that is currently what's on the table.
Amy, go right ahead.
I'm the question
Oh,
lady.
go for it.
Has Geotech done work for us in other locations throughout the city? For some reason that I thought they
Rings a bell.
had. Yeah,
They assisted us when we did that analysis of Pure Side Lane over the dam at Lake Chesterfield.
okay, thank you.
Rick, did you want to add anything about geotech and any work that we might have done on the public works side?
Yeah, I was going to mention that as well. They've worked with us on other projects, more traditional civil engineering bridge projects as well in the past. So we have some experience with them.
Joe.
I was just gonna say, we're familiar with these guys. I think, at least for myself, I think we probably need to pursue all of this thing, because just piecemealing this out is just gonna mean we gotta do it again. So,
We don't know if we're gonna get it right.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I'm happy to use geotechnology. I think that, we've used them in the past. They've served the city well, and I think doing this full freight deal is the way to go. So we need a motion unless somebody else wants to, has any questions.
Any other discussion? Anything else? Rick, what do you think? You've worked with them. Do you think that they're the ones to do this kind of job for us?
Yeah, I wouldn't, frankly, I wouldn't be comfortable bringing it to you if we didn't feel that they could execute the work and provide good service to us. No, they are a very reputable firm in St. Louis. They've done a good job for us, and I'm confident they would be a good choice here.
Well, and we've been dealing with this for 10 years. The building was built and in about 2 months, 3 months, the cracks started appearing and the water started coming through. So I think it would behoove us to do the due diligence necessary to locate the sources, because I'm thinking it's probably more than one source. So I like the fact that they're looking at more than just one thing. And even if we spent the $67.29 on just the rock surface, I bet you we come back in 2 weeks and go, oh, we should have done more.
I just think this is the reason we're doing this, because it wasn't done right the first time. So we ought to go above and beyond what we think's reasonable to do it right. So that it's not gonna be cheap, but let's do it right and make sure we learn from.
One thing I'd like, sorry, I was gonna just add is that, say we go with all the options here and we move forward, this report should be pretty affirmative of what the conditions are outside of this building, how that is impacting. So it's something that, obviously conditions can change, but typically soil composition and things along those lines, you're gonna get a good feeling for this and they're gonna be able to utilize this data to tell us what would come next too. So we would be able to potentially look at mitigating factors, which if we would end up having to just kind of preparing for the future. If we had to move those rain gardens, that would be a very crazy, that would be a very large project. You would be talking about probably destroying tearing up our parking lot back there. You'd have to get involved with MSD to get approval on that type of work. It would get very involved very quickly. So I mean, this is good data to have. And you know, if we had to make those decisions, you know, you want to make sure the data's right if it's gonna be something that's that monumental and it's gonna, that would be a very expensive project. So we want to make sure we have the data to back that up.
Tracy?
I'd also like to get moving before spring and we get a ton of rain and then at least it has more damage inside and I feel like we need to get on it before that all happens.
So we have a motion to move forward with the recommendation. Joe, and we have a second, Tracy?
Mhm.
So, all in favor? Aye. No one's opposed. We think you need to get moving on it. I think it's great.
Thanks, Chair Marshall. And in that case,
We
with
need
that
to say that
recommendation.
would then technically be that option two, or
Oh, yes, yeah, in the motion, could we
Yes.
confirm that we would do all including option
All
B,
including
not
option.
option one?
yep, okay.
I
So-
think Megan got that correctly.
And in that case, from here, we'll take that recommendation, we'll draft up an ordinance and that will be presented at the city council meeting in March.
Could you, if it might not be a bad thing too, when we're doing that, to, if we can get it, to get an understanding of how long this study will take.
Most definitely.
Because that's a question I'm sure we'll be asked.
In the, and just a heads up too, in the agreement we'll draft for the consultant services, we'll have a proceed before or on date, and then we'll have, they will have to confirm with us what date they would expect to be done. So we'll have a firm understanding, but I'll put a memo together as well. So when that legislation goes forth, we have something on the work session that is more of just a descriptive of what will be, what you all will be.
Could we ask a representative to come to the council meeting so that the
Yes.
rest of the committee could, so they could present a review of what they're planning on doing to the entire council?
Most definitely.
Yeah, like, I don't know exactly, I don't know how any of this stuff works really, but I know, like, when we did the USGS thing and they're studying the water flow and stuff in the creeks, if by chance it hadn't rained, they wouldn't have been able to get the data. So if some of this stuff requires liquid falling from the sky
Or not.
or not,
Yeah.
that might determine some of how this works.
In that case, we can
You need
do,
to call the fire department and have them hose down.
Right.
Yeah, wet it down for us.
we can ask Geotech if there's an optimal time during the year where it would make most sense to start. And if that is a consideration, we'll be sure to bring that forward too.
Anything else on that? Great work getting it pulled together.
Thank you very much, Chair Marshall.
Okay, a proposal for the leaks and repairs.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. So we've got quite a few things going on still. So at the October 3rd meeting, the committee had directed staff to also go in and figure out if we could, find the root cause with a partner for the leaks. And it's partially covered by the geotech, but also see if we could get on these leaks. These leaks are obviously, when it rains, it's just an anecdotal piece, but last time it rained, I think it was a couple weeks ago, we do see a little bit of pooling by the clock tower, and we do still see that water coming down. We've seen a lesser amount coming out of that kitchen area. That being said, it's clearly something that needs to be addressed. We have with the clock tower specifically, it is leaking about, I would say 4 feet away from where the very expensive electrical components of the elevator shaft are. So we got very lucky that when they were doing the insurance testing to see what actually caused it, some individuals that we were working with tried to say that, no, this was definitely caused by the fact that your guys' building is leaking. They were able to determine, and that's what kind of took a long time here, they were able to determine that that was not the case. It was caused by a short. That being said, with the distance to that very expensive electrical equipment, I think it's astute to move quickly to block that up and seal it. That's what these proposals really are. They're sealing it and doing masonry work where necessary. That's where the 2 for the police leak and the leak for the clock tower. Those are more focused on sealing the masonry we already have, potentially adding a little bit more where it's needed if it needs to be replaced. But they think those two at least should 100%, those two they can fix. Stat was they work with the Garland Company. The Garland Company Inc. has been kind of navigating this for us. We got recommended them by Rockwood School District. They actually work through pretty much all of their buildings throughout, and they say they're really good. They come out and actually look at the job beforehand, and that's what they did. That's why it took a long time to get all these proposals together. They were trying to find the root cause, and you'll see as an attachment here for the police leak, they actually, I included tonight the study, well, not the study, but the kind of the case study, if you will, for the police station leak. It's pretty straightforward where it's leaking. It's literally a separation of two pieces of brick for the tower, but the police leak, they were able to pin that down to a portion of the rain garden up front. So they were able to determine that both of those could be fixed with sealant and with some potential masonry work. That came in. And if you do both, so if we decided to move forward with both, it would be $18,300. Oh, wait, not 18,000, $20,000 for the two police station and the leak that we have at the clock tower. And then this is what really took some time, was that they needed to investigate the kitchen leak. It's a little bit of a tougher one than the other two that we have. In this case, they had determined that water is somewhat pooling on the roof, and they believe that is somehow seeping in. So what they had suggested before, they pretty much said this, you really want to get to the root of this, you need to pull out the windows, which would take heavy machinery. You would need to pretty much tear off the wall of the building at that section and have them go in and dissect it. They said that's what you probably need to do here. But they also offered an option, it seems like it's pooling in a certain area on the roof. We could direct that water away with some additional gutterage. And that's what they had proposed, that, hey, this might be 18,000, but it's not going to be 150,000 to take that wall off and all that just to figure out what the problem is. So they said this could be a big stopgap to at least, but they think it would address the issue, but they're not 100% sure. So I wanted to make sure to have that asterisk in there, if you will. So in this case, both of those proposals should address the three leaks that we currently have. And in that case as well, this is something that's would not be deemed under the professional services portion of our purchasing policy. It's not an engineer that would be conducting the study or anything like that. So this would have to go out to bid. So tonight, what the department is looking for with these parameters that we've been given, to draft an RFP, publish that RFP, and then bring back the RFP submissions to the committee for review. So that's what we're looking for tonight. And then we would return with pretty much outlining an RFP with the same items that we had outlined in these proposals. And we would assume that the contractors that shown interest already would also submit a proposal, most likely to the RFP.
How many people how many companies do we have to get?
So it's not necessarily how many we have to get them from. With our bidding process, we have to publish the RFP through a local newspaper, some sort of publication. And then we have to have the RFP open for 10 days theoretically. Typically, how we do it, to give everyone ample time, is 6 weeks, but that can be determined by the department, that can be determined by council. That is something that's not a problem, but the main piece is you just have to have that open period where it's published on our website. It's not a legal requirement, but we like to do that. It's published on our website, it's published in a local paper, and it's open for a duration of time. And then we have those sealed bids come in, and then we open them on the day that we had noted. And once we have those results, we then would bring all those back to you for review.
Mr. Chair, would
Yes,
we be able to go ahead and issue that notification to the finances, so to speak, like later this week or early next week, so that we can get bids back, or does that have to be approved by council to put that out there?
For the RFP, I don't believe there's I don't think so with the
the
purchasing.
RFP, we just couldn't.
We wouldn't be
Can't
able,
decide on the
No,
RFP.
so
We have
that's-
to
so-
bring our
Yeah,
recommendation
I
to
think you're
council.
absolutely right.
so we
Yeah.
would go ahead, do the RFP, we would get the submissions back, we would bring those in to the committee, we would schedule a secondary committee meeting, and then we would review those submissions together, and then the committee would make a recommendation whether to proceed with one or whatever it might be, and then that recommendation will be pulled forward to council.
I'd like to move that we go forward with putting an RFP out on the street and getting it back within 2 weeks, give them 14 days if they want the business. Everybody Everybody's hungry right now.
We have a motion, second,
Yeah, so
and then we'll questions.
are we, well, I was just gonna ask, are we getting, it's an RFP for one company to do all the, or for a company to do all of this stuff, right?
That's a good question. So in this case, Councilmember Marshall, we would actually, since these are two really kind of separate types of work, one's guttering, the other is more masonry work and sealing, we would separate those out. So we would expect that the police leak and the clock tower would be we would hope that the contractor would do both of those, but then the guttering would go out as a separate RFP. So it would technically be two RFPs brought back, and those would be clearly identified who applied for what.
The proper people, experienced people to do it. Just a dumb question. If the solution is that this is one way to do those windows, but we're really not sure it would do it, should we get a second opinion of another company who says we think it's a 70% chance it won't come back, or I wouldn't do it that way? I mean, you just don't know. If we did it right the first time, we shouldn't be dealing with it now. So obviously, if that's the one company's opinion and they may be right, is there any way to ask another, and maybe if you put in the RFP,
I was gonna say.
optional solutions?
We
or-
could have that as an ad alternate,
I
and
just think sometimes you take a risk and it just.
Yeah.
well, in that case,
Short term.
yeah, I don't disagree with that, Chair Marshall, and what we could do is we could have a proposal put out there. We know that a solution is there and they have the ability to do it for the clock tower and the police leak. Let's get that out. What we could do is an ad alternate, if you're able to take a look at this. This is something we'd also like to get a quote for. And then they could, most of the time, they're gonna probably be visiting City Hall to see these issues. So they could take a look at that, and if they want to provide it, they would at least need to provide, at least zero, because if they don't, the only thing that I would say would be risky there is if we have that as an official ad alternate, if they don't put a dollar amount in for said ad alternate, because they don't know how to do guttering, or if they don't know how to do that, they can't find a solution either, that would technically disqualify them from the bid. Would you agree with that, Joe?
I'm sure they would probably find a sub or some other.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, we'll make it clear in the RFP then too. So
Gutters there now, right?
no, there aren't. And something this would have to go through the architectural review board. These two wouldn't, police leak and the clock tower would not need to go through that board, but since you would be adding gutters to the Wildwood building, that would technically need approval from the architectural review. So that would be something we'd have to do, but also one big thing I'd like to note is that, say we find out that the guttering is gonna be the best way to avoid this water issue and, literally get the best bang for our buck. They're only able to, architectural review board would smack us on this too, is that we want to make sure we're utilizing the same materials. And those are copper guttering that we have out there. New copper is gonna look a little different than the
Yeah.
copper we currently have on there, so time will fix that.
Yeah.
But just know that if we did it, it will stand out, and that could be something the architectural review board takes up and definitely might be a consideration. Joe, you have any thoughts on that?
It's just a simple explanation like you all just said. The patina will come very quickly.
So in this case, okay, so that's,
So when does ARB meet again?
Yeah.
well, they wouldn't need to review it until we got proposals in, right?
So we could stage it so it's almost seamless.
So we get the proposal, council decides it, then ARB gets it after
No,
that.
no.
No,
We
you would
do couple
offer,
this together.
you would authorize the contractor to proceed. The contractor will need to pull permits as well because it's a commercial route. And so it has to be permitted under our code through St. Louis County. That means there'll be drawings developed.
Okay.
And then permits and authorization. So it's a problem we've had for a while, but I think following the steps that probably weren't followed as closely as they should be now would be in our best interest.
I'm just thinking from a timing standpoint, it would be,
Mhm.
I don't wanna rush things necessarily, but it would also be really good to get an approval of this stuff by hopefully the council's next meeting and then move that down the road.
That,
I mean, we just had that on Monday, right? So they got a month.
I think
We can
the
go,
only,
yeah.
the only concern I have with that timeline, I don't think it's necessarily, the paperwork could be done. It's more so if we actually get interest from other vendors, it took the Garland company about 6 visits to City Hall
There
to
you go. do.
to investigate each leak. And the guttering was kind of the one that really kind of threw them for a loop. But that being said, they at least we know what's going on with these two, so that should be very helpful. It's more so them investigating, because the thing is, what we're gonna be asking them is, hey, we think that this guttering should help. If you have another solution, we are all ears, and that will be your ad alternate. So that
But
being,
if we split them apart, which we're gonna do,
well, that what the thing was, I thought we were going in the direction of having one RFP with an ad alternate added to it, which would be the guttering. And then the main piece of work that we'd be asking for though is
yeah, that's what I mean. So, but I guess what I'm wondering is like, the epoxy and the bricks and things like that. That seems like a relatively straightforward.
Yeah.
So that we should be like, what I am trying to think through is like with spring and everything else coming. I would like to get the things that we know are able to be fixed as fast as we possibly can. And then sort of ethereal question of where the water is coming from can get answered. My guess is a gutter is gonna fix it because that's what gutters do.
Then I have a suggestion, if you don't mind, Chair Marshall. So in this case, what we could do instead of the ad alternate, we would go ahead and publish an RFP for bids related to the leak in the police, the police station and the leak at the clock tower. That would be its own separate RFP. Then when these people come to bid, we could note in that RFP that we have an issue in the back that we don't have necessarily an idea of what's causing it. We don't know exactly what to ask, but when those individuals, if they were to come out and visit, or if they were to email us, we could follow up with them. And that would be more or less official, but we would do that. But also we could reach out to some of our partners and see if anybody else could look into it to see if this gutter idea would actually address the issue. And then when we come back to review submissions for the RFP for the police leak and the clock tower, we could discuss those findings that we have been able to compile. And then if we need to, at that point, move forward with another RFP for that leak specifically. So we would get what you're trying to do, get the parts that we know would work done quickly, but then maybe have that addressed at a later date. Because it's gonna probably be over my purchasing power, which would make it so we would have to go back out. to
Well,
bid.
and I'm wondering, I'm sure we probably don't normally do this, and maybe we can't for good reason, but. Would it be worthwhile to get a bid or an RFP or whatever on the gutters as a possible solution while we're still trying to find out if other solutions are there, so that these things aren't all happening piecemeal?
And that, I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. The only thing is,
Like,
Would
have
that
we
be
done that,
affecting-
Joe? Like, I know, like, I guess my question is like, the council's gonna approve, let's say, whatever it is, $15,000 for the gutter. But we're approving you or the mayor to sign a contract for the gutter. You don't have to sign the contract then
it's
still,
technically
right?
given the authorization, yes.
We're just giving you the ability to do that.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
So technically though, the only thing I would think of is if we went out to bid for the gutter issue, typically you only want to go out to bid, and this is more of just like how does it look to the contractor deal? Sometimes it's not always the funnest thing, getting all the paperwork together
Sure.
and doing an actual bid document. We could maybe, if we put the bid out there, we collect bids and we don't move forward, that could be a negative PR item for the city. Do you have thoughts on that? Do you agree? It's okay if you disagree too.
Hey, Thomas,
Yeah, Rick.
As well.
I guess I would kind of reference the fact that it's really not a bid, it's a proposal. We're asking for proposals from contractors, so I would leave it somewhat general. At least in terms of the kitchen window area, let them propose what they think would address the problem, and they may or may not agree that the gutter is the solution, but we'll find out.
So in that case, Rick, would you still then recommend having two separate RFPs, one for the work we have identified and nailed down, and then one for an investigation plus their theory of a solution? Or would you
I
have
would-
it be the same?
I wouldn't make it too necessarily complex. I think one RFP could cover it, frankly. It's all building work related to stormwater, intrusion into the building. So unless you've got specific requirements that require different contractor teams, I think you could do it with one RFP. You could split it out, ask them to provide costs for each area and provide detailed information
Yes.
relative to what they are proposing for each leak area and cost, but it could still be in one RFP.
I don't disagree. I think the only thing that we'd want to make sure of is in the RFP have language that would strictly state that the city has the right, if we break it out like that, the city has the right to accept partial pieces of this RFP versus if you accept this, we have to also expect whatever their theory might be for the gutter situation or the kitchen. There's
We've done that, we've done that.
Yes, we have.
Other
So that's something we could do. So
We just don't wanna
Park.
have one thing hold up the other.
yeah, so in this case, we could have an RFP. It would be, we would want cost estimates for all three leaks. We'll provide the info we have on file. And at that point, we would also have the third piece, which would be, we'd make sure, speaking of John Young, we'd have language in there that would prohibit or give us the ability to choose one or the other or all.
We can do that.
And we would move forward if we see fit, but if it's not a good fit, then we could accept a partial submittal and then move to do, if we needed to at that point, go out for another RP if we don't get a solution that we think is appropriate. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Okay, all right. So we have confirmed that. Okay. Well, in that case, sounds good.
Sounds like, no,
Well, in that case, would we take a motion?
to move forward with proposals or RFPs.
Yes.
Move forward with an RFP.
With an RFP that would have all three leaks separated and would would have
The option to.
So-
the option to accept.
Rick, I guess we're comfortable with the solution for the clock, for the brickwork, right? We're solid that that's just what needs to happen.
We feel confident, at least I do, with their solution that they, especially for the police league and the clock tower, it's pretty straightforward what they.
So then, yes, then we're good. So we don't have to have like a nebulous thing for both areas.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. Yep.
Who would like to make that motion? All right, we've got a motion, but this time we'll let Tracy make the motion and we'll let Joe second the motion. Okay. Any discussion?
No.
Do we need to have our timeline? Do we need to have a timeline on it when we're doing the RFPs, or you
We
guys can
can-
do that on your own?
We could, yeah, we'll get it out there, but it'll probably be at least probably Monday. And then
Yeah, I just meant like the turnaround time, like if it's gonna be,
Well,
because
well-
normally it's 6 weeks, maybe.
we won't do 6 weeks, but we'll probably need to give them like 3 weeks or so.
Monday to
Well,
Tuesday.
So let's look at when our next council meeting is, and let's get it in a week before the next council meeting, so we have something to bring forward to council. And I know February is a short month.
And you're not here on Monday, right?
So yeah, we're not here from.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we get an extra day this
It's
month.
on the 11th, it's on March 11th,
Yeah.
so. What is that? I mean, it's,
We'll do everything in our power, team here will do everything in our power to get it by that council meeting. I will say it depends on how the contractors react. We don't want to make it, it has to at least be 10 days. So
Sure.
that's per the code.
but like also wondering, like, I would be okay, and this kind of more everything, like. I would love if we can get it in advance for us to look at it, but I'm also pretty sure that since we're all gonna decide on it anyways, we can have a 16-person conversation about which of these bids is the right way to go in the work session. I don't think it'll be that complicated.
If that's needed, then as long as that, you guys are, and
Maybe
Chair
Paul
Marshall, we
doesn't
could,
Like to let those discussions go on a lot, but
Right.
we've had them in the past where
This is big.
something new has come before us and.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Hi.
I can ask one more dumb question.
Mhm.
The roof itself. Every year or so, you'll see where the geese will pull the rubber liners out and the roof is staying that way. We really think, does the roof need some work done?
personally, aesthetically, yes.
Well, I know it needs to be cleaned desperately, but
Uh,
we could do all this other stuff, and then we do the roof, or we do the roof before you start tearing out the windows and putting the gutters down.
I think you want to, with that kitchen leak specifically, you probably want to get that done before you do the roof because yes, I would say get the kitchen leak done. The other two leaks actually aren't tied to the roof, so that wouldn't be as big of a deal. I would say that kitchen leak just with the unknown question mark that it seems like it's pulling, but then a new roof would just have that same issue unless you were able to work that into the design of that roof, though. Maybe that's something we look.
I just think we should consider the fact that it's not gonna get better
Mhm.
without looking at it, but I just know, it seems like in the spring, when the geese, you can see them tugging on it, they just pull those rubber liners out. And I mean, I just think so down the road, whether we do it before or after, we just should leave it on the list that the roof needs to be addressed. Either just, maybe it's just cleaned, or maybe there's a way to seal around the
I mean, the roof's 10 years, the roof's as old as the building, right? Have we ever had any like hail work or anything? I mean, there's no way that roof hasn't been hailed on.
We've not replaced any of the.
it's totally.
Well, that's some of the benefits of the tile is the hail doesn't damage it
That is,
as much as it does
it,
asphalt.
But is it goose proof? It seems.
It's pretty interesting
Who
watching.
would have thought? We have to worry about that.
You'd think it'd snap and
I
hit him in
think
the
we have
middle.
some very good sharpshooters on contract. Just.
I just
maybe
think
those keys.
If we could just
Team
keep it on
six.
the list so that we
Yeah.
get it cleaned up. You hate to think you do all this work and we don't take care of what everybody makes comments about, is how the roof looks, so.
in this case, we can definitely look into that and have some options. We could definitely have that. After would we wanna do that while we're doing this, or would we wanna get this addressed and then move on to that piece? I will say
Outside of the building before, we didn't, right?
we had them spray off, I had them, Scott, we had them spraying off the clock tower when we did that tour of the SID.
Yeah.
So while they were doing that, it was extra like a couple $100 to have them spray off certain portions of the front of the building, but when it comes to other cleaning, that was about it. So it was really just certain areas we had some extra time, we had them work within it, and we didn't get a full cleaning.
Cause I mean, that might be, I know at least for myself, we had our siding redone about 10 years ago. This summer, it's like you gotta go re-caulk all the stuff and like.
It just needs ongoing
it's super fun,
Yeah.
but that's how it works. I would imagine a commercial building isn't that much different.
Well, the same thing as the roof is that lattice stuff on that end of the building.
Yeah.
It just needs, we're gonna leave it up there, it needs to be painted. Or something, it just,
Or stained or
it
whatever
doesn't
is.
look like I think a city hall should look like. I mean, just- But I mean, and we don't, the ones that we're working on are certainly the big priorities. But if any of those are things that we just need to come back to council and say, look, we're gonna paint the trim, and we're gonna do this, we could do it this summer. I think everybody's in favor of making it look better than what it was.
Hey, Thomas.
Okay, so start chipping away some of these aesthetics. Rick, did you have something?
Well, I was just gonna mention, if you want, we can discuss this in more detail, but you know, we pulled in G&W to do that very thing with the parking garage across the street. So I'm sure they would be glad to help us put together kind of a maintenance plan for the city, in particular, look at the exterior and the roof in terms of what we need to be thinking about doing from a maintenance standpoint. If that's the direction you want to go, but we could certainly talk to them about that.
When you working on the park, people will look over at City Hall and say, what in the world?
Yeah, well, and that wood looks pretty, it's just exposed, it's raw wood. what it
Yeah.
Looks like, so I mean, that's gonna rot sooner rather than later anyways. I think it has to, I think it's like. I think, isn't that lattice like built into the side of the building or just sitting?
Just add it on, isn't it?
It's just sitting on the top of the brick.
Yeah, pretty sure it's like fixed. It's not like integrated into the building.
Maybe we look at how much it costs to take it off.
Take that off.
Not that they take that.
Yeah.
Would that be, need to go to the architectural review board?
Yes,
That would also need
What do
to
you think, Joe? Is that not a good, is that?
I mean, I don't know.
it's an unusual design. Yeah, architecture. So
I think it was a good idea perhaps to try, and we've tried it and, maybe a different option, like, let's try brick.
Let's try brick.
A fake stone.
There's stone.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the other thing. I guess if you take it off, that brick, I guess, might be sun stained by this point. I don't know how that really works.
So
So,
just power wash it.
yeah,
that's the good thing about brick. You can get that off.
And we're not just trying to make it, there's just a lot of that kind of stuff. They think we need to be at least putting it on a list.
Yeah.
Say, okay, and it's not, it has to be done tomorrow, but I mean, I think we just shouldn't let it go. At least we have this committee for a few months. We could.
In this case, we do have, just wanted to send a reminder. We had set aside 100,000 in the capital improvement program, capital improvement sales tax fund this year. We did just incur a $38,000 charge on that for the new boiler. So we technically, I mean, we, as long as we know that, you know, with these projects going forward, that's pretty much $100,000 right there. That being said, if, you know, this could be something where the budget amendment could be made, but just wanted to make sure we keep an eye on the budget as well.
From a budget standpoint, though, maybe I'm looking at this incorrectly. If we're budgeting $100,000, we were not budgeting for a new boiler. That was an emergency thing.
That was an
That was an
emergency.
emergency.
So I personally don't think I would count that as part of $100,000. That's a
No.
different thing.
Technically, it has to be counted, because it would be it's an improvement to the building, because it's done one time, so it falls under that definition. It would have to go against that line item, because
But I mean, when we're talking about it, like that, to me, that's one of those things.
when
that
it's
we
more of like a
Have
logistical,
a conversation and you go, hey, okay, yes, it's at 138,000.
yes, whereas like if a
Yeah.
budget amendment was presented to the council, it would be
And so we'll
understanding
have to
that,
make
yep,
an
that's not.
adjustment to
Yeah.
the budget mid-year.
Yes, that is correct.
Mhm.
So that would be in this case, but that would, if we take that out, that gives us a little breathing room.
Yeah, I would
Some
say,
other
I mean, for
standards.
myself, and I don't know if you guys disagree, like, that's a different kind of a thing.
I just, to me, there's no reason we have reserves if the building's falling apart.
That's what that's what.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you there.
That's been a problem for several years.
There's
We
no
just wouldn't
reserve,
fix
we're not
something.
fixing anything.
Yeah, and then we get to fix it
Just
for
have
3
broken
times the
stuff.
cost. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Well, we can deal with that in June, whenever May we need to do budget. I just think we need to find these things, especially, and get them addressed. And right now, why you got a group of us willing to do it, and you guys can keep working on it. I just think go for it. Let's get it back up to where we should be
Mhm.
for the long term.
Cause it's been ignored for 10 years and
It's not gonna get cheaper.
it's not gonna get any cheaper. And we need to make sure in our upcoming budget that we have a building maintenance category
Yeah, appropriate.
with, you know, maybe 100,000, maybe 75,000. I don't know what we put in it, but
It may need to, like, the 100,000 may be a standing item until we address a lot of.
and if we don't use it because everything's working fine this year, then fine, roll it into the next year.
You get a good idea of what it costs to replace some of the stuff in something that'll last 3 years.
It should.
No, it's
Council chambers.
council chambers. I do have one other
Sure.
question. As far as the kitchen leak, has anything been done to at least abate it somewhat in the current time? Or is it still
Not during my
with the
tenure.
ceiling falling down and?
Ceiling is
It's like
still
a
in bad
leachable
shape.
bucket up there. It's collecting stuff.
Okay,
And what about mold? Is that a
In this
problem?
case, we do get consistent testing done on the air, and
Okay.
there is no mold currently present. That would be, the air quality is fine.
okay. Well, that's part of the reason I think we're all pushing to get this moving forward quickly so that that location and the clock tower and the places where we have more potential risk for either more building damage or employee problems, we want to get those things fixed ASAP. So I think
Anything else?
That was not,
We do
I do
have-
apologize. I'll add that to the next agenda, but I actually noticed that too. Oh, wait, we do have miss.
we
Can I
do.
ask a miscellaneous?
Yes.
I think I remember in our last meeting, we talked about somebody being the building supervisor, building person,
Superintendent or
superintendent person. I don't remember. Who was it?
Tim Phelan, he is our building super.
I thought we passed that. in
I
the-
might suggest that we have him, or however that works, talk to somebody. I'm not sure who that person would be off the top of my head. But like, if we were an investor, for instance, purchasing this building, they would assign a value and they would tell you, this is about how much you should expect. This is what your building is ranked at. It's a AAA, it's a whatever it is.
2% a year, so much a square foot.
Yep, and this is how much you should expect in maintenance costs to maintain this building as a proper commercial building, which is technically what it is. So it might be worthwhile to get that information so that we can assign that budget appropriately. I'm not saying, my guess is $100,000 is probably not
Mhm.
saying
For a 10-year-old building.
an appropriate amount of money for a unmaintained
Mhm.
10-year-old building.
We can certainly look into.
Then it would help us also determine future wise, how much we should be spending, 5 years you do the carpet.
Yeah, they have a
It-
schedule.
Mhm. You have a schedule of,
After our last meeting, I did a decent amount of research on this, and typically for a commercial building, you're wanting to spend 3 to 5% of the annual value. Yeah, not the annual, the value of that building, so that's
A lot.
It is difficult, though. I tried establishing how much our property and the building is worth. That was very difficult to find. That's the piece here, is figuring out how.
It's gonna go up once the park goes in.
That is very true. So maybe we do that, well, maybe we do the evaluation now before.
Well, you know, you might be able to ask, Mr. Jones, I guess, who bought the building over there. Or,
Oh, R.L. Jones.
Yeah.
Yes.
they certainly have an idea of what the real estate is worth around here per square foot.
Yeah, if it wasn't being used as like a city hall, yeah.
And I mean, I would think of it, you know, as if Larry was here, he would suggest again that it's worthwhile for us to at least explore the possibility of selling this building to somebody else. And so in order for us to do that appropriately, we would need to know, generally speaking, this building is worth X amount per square foot.
If I may.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I know when you say building, you're talking about the grounds as well, but we've not maintained our water quality very well. We trim it, but we don't necessarily maintain it. So there's just a lot of little things like that around the building itself. So I hope we would include that as part of that budget
Oh, yeah.
analysis.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
you know, when you're looking at this, if you have a commercial building, it's like, you know, parking lot resurfacing, changing light bulbs, whatever it is, there's a million things. All things that you'd forget about. And it adds up really fast. So, you know, we just need to know, I mean, it's important to realize and to keep saying like, I'm not sure it was anybody's personal fault that this happened, but like the building has not been properly maintained as a fact. And so we have to get the building back to where it should be and then also maintain it when it gets there. So that's gonna be an expensive undertaking.
But the good part of it is you know what it costs to maintain it when you own it. If you did lease it from somebody, then you have a flat fee that you pay the leasing people to take care of all of it. So I mean, I think part of it is just really figuring out what is that option. And a lot of this stuff, the ongoing maintenance, if you knew what you were paying to do ongoing maintenance, then you could justify the cost savings of investing in doing something different, like a new boiler.
Right.
I mean, all of those could have been decisions that you'd have the basis to make if we had that information. So it's a great project.
Also, I mean, how long is a boiler supposed to last? 10 years? Doesn't
15
sound-
years.
I was just gonna say, I would think
15 to
15 to
20
20 and 15 on the low
It
end.
had a crack in it that it was, to fix it, we would have 5 years left with it and it would have been.
I just had to do the same thing in my house this summer with the HVAC. I'm just saying that there's I think that there's a learning lesson in a lot of these things where, at least for myself, I see a lot of conversation from some of our citizens that, you know, why don't they just take the lowest bid? Well, the reason is it breaks very fast or it's not right and you have to then spend more money to fix the thing. So, you know, my guess, I don't know, because I wasn't paying a lot of attention 10 years ago, is many of the things in this building were low bid options.
Mhm.
And that is evident when we walk around it. So it's important to kind of educate people on that stuff because they will say that this is all frivolous nonsense and it's really not.
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, the building needs to be taken care of. There's people that work here, we have residents come in. This is supposed to be the pillar of Wildwood and our citizens are supposed to look to this as kind of a guiding building, if you will.
Thank you, Mr. Vonich.
Joe.
So taking care of it and bringing it back up to snuff. I know we're kind of just getting the engine warmed up on this, but I think there's a lot.
I watched a special on PBS last night about the Eiffel Tower, the building of it, and the ongoing maintenance. And every 7 years, they have a crew of people that come out and repaint the entire tower. And every year they inspect every nut and bolt on that whole tower. And yeah, it costs money for the city of Paris, but
Amazing.
yeah.
What you do for the things you care about. you know?
Yeah.
I bet they're not doing that in Las Vegas for the little one.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think so. I don't think so.
All right, anything else under miscellaneous?
No.
Rick, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Red. Thank you, Thomas, for getting the
Yes.
information pulled together.
And Megan, thanks. So we have a motion to adjourn. Would you like to make that?
I'll make that motion.
Katie made a motion, Joe seconded it. All in favor, say